Westeros.
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle. And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners, and we got Sansa 2 on deck. Gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
I was going to start with the Nelson recap because I felt bad that he was the only one remembering that happened. So
Pick an easy one.
Sansa gets fitted for a dress, and
That's it.
and she wonders if everybody can see through everything that she does as well.
Day in the life of a girl.
You know, she's kind of like conflicted about the whole situation of everybody else. So
Yeah.
we'll get into that.
Sure.
That's the one sentence part of it.
Yeah. What'd you think about the chapter? As a first time reader.
It made me think a lot. How's that, right? Like I don't really know the answer to any of the questions she's kind of asking throughout the chapter.
So I thought you were going to hate this chapter because to me nothing really new happens here. She kind of, like you're saying, she thinks about a lot of stuff, but she thinks pretty much about a lot of stuff that's already happened to her in the past.
Yeah, we've already thought about all this stuff.
I mean, I think maybe that's part of it is that we haven't had a Sansa in a while, so I'd kind of forgotten that the party scene and all that with the Tyrells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, like that ended with like the end of that conversation. I'm sure we talked about it a little bit, but she like thinks about it a lot here, which again makes the reader think about it more.
Yeah, it's a little bit of reflection.
I appreciate
so
it.
I didn't hate it.
It
was like I said.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Jeff appreciates that it was short because he's simple.
I appreciate that it was short because it was a bad chapter. It's just a bad chapter. It's literally like it's like a girl's diary chapter. Thankfully, it was 6 pages long.
Yeah, this was a girl's diary chapter. That's how I feel too. I think it's a really good description.
It was a little bit, yeah. I mean, like the whole, like we do sleepovers and we are all kind of jostling for rank, but none of them are real women. Like
I feel like it's super relatable to being like a 13-year-old girl, probably like the thought process that's going on, the girl politics of a group and how they play.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big parts of it too is like this is the first Sansa chapter we've had in a while where she's not like miserable. Right? She's like making friends. She's like starting to be like a little girl again instead of like a captive. You know what I mean? So
I don't know. Maybe I'm reading the book too critically because of this podcast, but like I'm just wondering what nefarious reason for this dress there is, right? Or if it's even going to be a dress, if it's going to be fitted for, chains or something like that. Like, who knows, right?
So let's get into the chapter because it starts off with the dress and she mentions it at the very end. And then the middle couple pages is basically her just thinking about random shit that's happening.
That was going to be my counterpoint to the whole girl's diary thing. It's like, I feel like there's still some, and maybe, like I said, maybe I'm overthinking it, but there's some threads that get like kind of introduced here, right? Like this is kind of one of the first chapters of the book where we're getting
literal threads.
Maybe not the first ones, but like we're getting, exactly. It's the beginning of stories versus the.
Yeah, I mean, just point out
John's
without
us
like pointing
new beginnings,
maybe shit to you, Kyle. Like point out threads that you see or want to talk about as we go, and we'll see how we can tackle them.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first one is the dress, right? Like that was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
the chapter starts off with she's basically getting tailored. Like there's a seamstress or a tailor. What do you? I don't know what you call them. A tailor. It's a tailor.
I don't know if a seamstress for. I think
what's the guy at Men's Warehouse called?
He's a tailor.
Yeah, that's what she is. She's taking measurements like I did at Men's Warehouse.
Yeah, but that's a seamstress.
So if it's a girl, it's a seamstress. If it's a guy,
I don't know
tailor.
if like a seamstress does dresses and a tailor does suits. We'd have to Google that.
Doesn't matter. Sansa's getting her measurements taken.
Danny, do you go to a seamstress for a dress or do you go to a tailor? Seamstress. Confirmed.
Seamstress. So seamstress is just a girl version. And
we found out that Cersei's the one that ordered these dresses, plural.
Yeah. Which is
sounds like dress currently. At least that's kind of what she's banking on,
I think dress, because later on she says, I wish I had two. That way I could wear one to this, one to that, but I'll have to wear an older one. So one dress.
At some point, I think the seamstress might have said like, "Oh, they'll be ready." So I was like, is there multiple, or maybe she's doing dresses for
that's the other
other
thing,
people
right? Like,
too, type of thing.
Yeah.
Is it the shackles? Is it the like I don't know. Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like, and I think part of it is just this hyper.
Like to Jeff saying, the fact that Cersei's behind it is like partially suspicious, right? Because even when she hears Cersei, she's like, I wonder if somehow like Olenna or Marjorie made Cersei make this happen. You know what I mean? Like, and they're working through her.
Well, and I think she had some good points, right? Like I know we like to talk smack on Sansa's kind of line of thinking sometimes, but this is a good point. Like maybe my new friends are pulling some weight around here, right?
Yeah. Especially Marjorie, who's been gentle and kind, and it's been seen throughout the whole kingdom. So, the next note I have is that her bosom's growing.
Yes, Cersei's basically, so the seamstress is making this dress, I guess, somewhat revealing, and it says that Cersei says that you're a woman now and basically should show it off.
You gotta have your tits out like me.
Yeah, and to Jeff's point, Sansa is thinking to herself like, "Damn, like none of my shit even fits anymore." The stable boy gives me some googly eyes.
I mean, it didn't fit in any other way. She grew like 3 inches. It said too, like so she got taller as well.
I mean, she is like a 12-year-old girl just like growing. It's been like a year since the first book started, right? And she just came with.
It reminds me of like being in 5th, 6th grade when all the girls just get bigger than the guys for the most part. Nelson might have been a freakazoid size.
I mean, I was big like size wise, but I got called El High Voiso in Spanish class until I graduated like high school.
Yeah, well, that's embarrassing.
Because my voice was high for like till like super late. So
El High Voiso.
It's because none of the guys in Spanish actually spoke Spanish. They just put L.
Yeah.
They just put L and
you
O.
Don't say
L before everything and O at the end of everything.
They never knew how to Google Translate to try to be a little bit accurate with them. Yeah, but so she's getting bigger. Guys are looking. Men are looking. Kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Well, she's a woman now.
She does have her flower.
She even mentions that, right?
Yeah.
She's hanging out with some new cousins. Isn't that I feel like next?
It's coming soon. So the other note I have about the dress is that they'll have it by the wedding. We kind of mentioned that.
And she's gotten bumped to the front of the line. Everybody else's production is getting cut essentially until hers is done.
Yep.
So again, like I said, this is either Cersei's giving her a dress to give her away, Cersei's putting her in some sort of fucking, like I said, some manacles or something weird, like prisoner device. It could be the whole Marjorie is and what's her name, the old lady,
Olenna,
yeah, Marjorie and Olenna are, like I said, pulling their weight and actually getting some positives for her. I honestly don't have a good read on this one at all.
Yeah. All right.
I was gonna say, real quick, do you remember what Sansa concludes? And it's not here. At the end of the chapter, she comes to a conclusion of what's going on. She thinks that Cersei's getting this dress for her so she doesn't look like shit at Joffrey's wedding. Right, that's her conclusion by the end of the chapter. I think is where she kind of comes.
I mean, and that would make sense, right? Like, yeah, that must be why. So I will not look shabby at the wedding, is what she says. Yeah, that must be why Cersei is having it made for me, so I will not look shabby at the wedding, which makes sense.
I like the way you're thinking. I just thought that while we were on the topic, I would throw in what Sansa concludes. Yeah,
it's kind of weird though. Then too, she's not going to end up wearing. She's going to wear this dress to the ceremony, but not to the feast because she doesn't want to get food on it.
Yeah. Yep.
She's gonna change outfit change like.
Well, and isn't that something like traditional as well as the outfit changes?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have no clue.
I wish I could do that at weddings nowadays. Like wear a suit to the ceremony, wear like sweatpants to the reception. You know what I mean? To get down in.
I'm gonna butcher how this works, but we were at an Indian wedding and they like changed outfits like many times. Like it was crazy.
Did everybody though? Because Sansa's just a guest at this wedding.
Not everybody. Yeah, I guess you're right. A lot of people do between the wedding and the reception, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you count Nelson, who at my wedding was in a full suit, then shortly after he took his jacket off, then he took his tie off, and then
pretty much once the reception starts, jacket and tie are not required.
But you could tell how late it was by how much clothes my brother was wearing in pictures at my wedding. Because it was like he didn't have a jacket on, then he didn't have a tie on, then he didn't have a shirt on, then he just had the vest on, then he
one guy we would go out with in college would always like to wear Hawaiian shirts, and he would like slowly unbutton more and more buttons. So yeah, like if you like showed up, you could just like basically tell how drunk he was by how many buttons were unbuttoned, like how much of his chest was showing.
Yeah,
if it was open, you could pretty much you could confirm he wasn't remembering what was going on if his shirt was the whole way open.
So back on track here, she has been. This is kind of where her mind switches gears into Marjorie, and she mentions like, oh, maybe Marjorie is the one that got this going. Like she's so kind, and I've been hanging out with her a lot more, and she kind of goes through kind of all the ladies at court. I didn't list them all else. If you want to mention them all, what she does with them, kind of, or what she enjoys doing with them.
Lady Leonette gave her high harp lessons. Lady Jenna shared all the gossip. Mary Crane always had an amusing story, and little Lady Bulwer reminded her of Arya, but less fierce. Remember, this is the one who's like really young.
And then the ones that she's been really chilling with, and I guess Marjorie's kind of included as well. Maybe not. Maybe she's just with these 3 cousins. But it's the 3 cousins.
I think Marjorie's there because Sansa says sometimes they like share Marjorie's bed.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they sleep over with her for sure. They must be about the similar age, close enough. Out of this group,
Sansa says that Eleanor is a woman,
closest to Sansa's own age were the cousins Eleanor, Alla, and Mega.
Yeah, but she later goes on to say that Ella is actually a maiden flowered, right? And she's betrothed to somebody, and the other 2 aren't. But yeah, so they're all around her age, and Sansa happened, she's freshly flowered.
Mm-hmm. So these girls are...
don't ever say that again.
Kind of a creepy way to say that, but I don't know how else to say it. You guys
these
know what
girls
I mean.
are out there kissing each other, though. They're getting ready to...
Yeah, kissing games.
Ready for the majors,
practicing,
I guess.
Yeah. Like you said, this is the diary part of this chapter for sure.
Mm-hmm.
They do needlework, play at tiles, go sing together in the sept, and one or 2 would share Marjorie's bed and whisper half the night away.
You gotta, just a little bit of pillow talk's okay, but sometimes you gotta go to sleep.
Yeah, so then Sansa says, Alla had a lovely voice, and when coaxed would play the wood harp and sing songs of chivalry and lost loves. Mega couldn't sing, but she was mad to be kissed. She and Alla played a kissing game sometimes, and she confessed, but it wasn't the same as kissing a man, much less a king. So, and Sansa thinks about it. It might not be right here, but Sansa thinks about it later. Like, these girls are so stupid. I think it's later when they're talking about how...
It's later on, I think.
Eleanor... So we can talk about it now. Eleanor, because I think it fits with this, right? Eleanor has, like, a betrothed who's a squire.
A young squire that had two confirmed kills in the Blackwater.
Yeah, in the Blackwater. And he says that he, like, shouted her name and he wore her favor when he was, like, in the battle. And the girls are talking, like, I want someone to wear my favor and kill 100 men.
I can't wait. Yeah.
And Sansa's like, you guys,
has a song
you're idiots. Yeah, you don't know what war looks like. I was fucking.
I wish she would have went like these stupid little birds. Like she
was so scared in that keep the whole time. Like it's like these people don't know what it's like.
They are children, Sansa thought. They are silly little girls. Even Eleanor. They've never seen a battle. They've never seen a man die. They know nothing. Their dreams are full of songs and stories, the way hers had been before Joffrey cut her father's head off. Sansa pitied them. Sansa envied them.
Yeah.
She's kind of like, man, Jeff was right. Like, I was just acting like a little girl. Because that's essentially, she's admonishing herself, right? Like, this is how she thought last book.
Yeah, but she also envies them. So it's not,
of course,
it's not pure like, oh, you stupid girls. It's almost like, I wish I was still.
Yeah, I mean, but like blissful ignorance is something that I think we all.
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly what she. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So they're doing the kissing game, and the one girl, Mega, I think, is like, "Oh, it'd be so great to kiss Joffrey," and doesn't she say something to Sansa? And she's like, "Oh my god, Joffrey's
the worst."
Like, made me cry.
She didn't say it. She no response.
She didn't say it. She thinks to herself, right?
Well, because she's like, no butter bumps in here to yell loud enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to be careful. Which is again, she's getting smarter. I feel like, right? Like she's learning.
Yep. She wonders what they would think about the kissing the hound, like she did at the night of the Blackwater.
Well, he kissed me, kind of.
Yep.
And threatened to kill her, and then she had to sing a random ass song that she didn't even know the words to.
Yep. Yeah, she just had to pick a song. She went with the Mother's Hymn. Because that's what she sang earlier that day.
Didn't she like barely remember the words though?
Well, she just went with the one song that she remembered because it was the one she sang earlier that day in the Sept, but it wasn't like a good song. I think he wanted like Florian and Jonquil or something.
All right. So then we kind of get away from these cousins and we really dive into Marjorie and again sweet and gentle, but she's got a little bit of her grandmother in her too.
Yep, a little of that Thorns.
What's her nickname? The Queen of Thorns, or
yep.
Yeah. So Olenna's a goat. Just even the last meeting, we could just tell she was the boss lady,
calling everybody stupid. Yeah, making fun of her son and shit.
So they go out hawking.
They did 2 days ago.
Yeah, right. It's a memory.
I got beef with this part, man. These birds that they're hawking with, we're not catching this stuff, man.
So a peregrine is a falcon, which is badass, but Sansa has a
merlin, which is another falcon, and they're both like a foot tall, maybe max. No way is that peregrine falcon taking out a heron. No way. Blue herons are like 3 feet tall, man. Do you ever see this? They're like children's size.
Yeah, but a foot and a half of his legs and a foot and a half of its neck. Like, you just go for the neck and it's dead, right?
There's no way that bird is taking out
Plus, a hawk has to be way faster than a heron.
It's faster than it, yeah, for sure.
So you just catch up and go for the neck.
I've got no info on this matter, so I'm gonna.
I don't know enough
It's
either.
too big.
I'm gonna agree with Kyle because it seems like Kyle might have seen like
no
a hawking going on at some point.
Either way, it's badass. Like that, you could just like ride out in the woods. Like I think we talked about this before. Like, what does like going hawking mean? And now we know. You just ride out with a freaking hawk, and you're like, go fucking kill that duck, and it just does it. It's badass.
You can do this in real life.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you need like duck tags?
Is this hunting for girls? Like we've seen guys go out on a hunt in this book, and they've taken a spear.
I mean, look at the Baratheons. Don't they all have birds?
Yeah, Stannis talked about how they all had like hawks.
They went hawking too. Yeah. So it's just a fun leisure activity.
I mean, people do it now. That's what I'm saying. Like real life, you can go. I think you have to.
Does someone train this hawk for Sansa? We haven't seen her do anything with like this. This hawk's ready to go.
Yeah, it's the first we've heard of. Like, where the hell did Sansa get this hawk from? It's the first we've heard of it.
It's definitely the Tyrells. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a loner hawk. She rented it like when you rent skis.
Yeah, exactly. They're probably like, oh, you can take this one. It's really good. And then you just let it go and it goes and comes back with.
Quick sidebar. I saw a YouTube video of a military. I don't think it was the US military, but some like military training hawks to attack drones.
Yeah, eagles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Badass, dude. It was so cool. They're just like, I mean, I guess it's just like hawking, but instead of a duck, it's a drone.
Who said AI was taking all of our jobs away?
Oh, dude.
Sometimes
birds are taking the eagle's job away. Or the eagle's taking the AI job away.
So as they go to walk out of the castle, it's the first time she's been outside the castle in a long time.
If this was Arya, she's just taking off, right? Like Arya's just like as soon as they get her off the ferry, gone.
And she has a horse.
Exactly. Yeah, a horse and a hawk. A horse and a hawk. It's funny because it doesn't even cross Sansa's mind. There's not half a line in this chapter where she's like, I could have got away because I'm out of the castle. No, she's like, I'm out of the castle. It was
she
lovely.
never once. Yeah.
Arya would have been like, I have a horse. I have a coin. I'll throw like one gold dragon to the guards to let me go, and then I'll just head north, and I'll be home by nighttime.
Oh, I thought you meant she was gonna pull the trick she did to get out of Harrenhal and be like, "Hey, Marjorie, catch this coin, stab."
Nah, if she was there, she never would have had the coin. So
yeah, she would have been stuck in. Yeah,
but they do see the remnants. They go out the mud gate. I want to say, Nels.
Yep, mud gate's pretty banged up. All the bodies are gone, buried, but there's ship bits everywhere and burned,
sticking out of the shallows. Black fingers.
Yep. So they cross the ferry to get to the Kingswood, but over there it's all just burned. Ashes, charred trees, just bad.
Yeah, it's the first time we've been over there since Tyrion's gangs burned it up.
Exactly, the Mountain Men. This is where they were going to town on Stannis.
But still just running around out there, right? They found a liking to the Kingswood.
I think some of them are, some came back and like got rocks and shit thrown at them, and Tyrion's like, you ungrateful fucks, and yeah. I think a couple different things happened. One of them just went back to the thing. Yeah.
So we start to talk about Willis, right? It's like Willis has the best birds in the Seven Kingdoms. So
yeah, Marjorie says that.
We get on this topic of him and how he flies the eagles.
You like this? You'll love this at Willis's house.
Yeah, he's the best.
My sweet sister.
So Kyle doesn't get mad. He's got an eagle. He's got a fucking golden eagle out there picking up goats off a cliff, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Those YouTube videos are sick. So yeah, Willis is the goat. He's
got
the best
that pterodactyl.
He's got the best birds, and Sansa's also just happy that she called her sister. She's like,
right.
Oh my god, I always wanted a sister like Marjorie. Arya was the worst sister ever.
Marjorie's the coolest.
She thinks about Marjorie. She's dreaming about Arya later, though. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes.
Yeah.
She's like, even occasionally, Arya's in them. Yeah, it's really weird.
Sansa has a little freak out. Don't marry Joffrey. You can't do it. He's gonna hurt you.
So they're alone. She does note that they're like away from there's no guards. Like there are guards with them, but they're like around the bend, so they can't see him when she starts going crazy about Joffrey. But she's like, yeah, don't do it. Like
he's gonna hurt you like he's hurt me. And Marjorie's like, nah, he's not going to.
Yeah, she's sure she's got protection.
Yeah, but I got Loras. Confident. Which like
best knight in the Seven Kingdoms.
And like Sansa starts thinking like, okay, I guess it is different because like you have an army and like everything, but like a book or 2 books ago, Sansa was in like a very, very similar situation to Marjorie, right? Like,
yeah, Ned had some good people behind him.
She didn't have a brother on the Kingsguard, but she had like later she says like, oh, he has an army.
But even with that too, and I think it's to the point that Sansa makes really quickly is that there's 6 other Kingsguardmen. You know,
yeah,
he's kind of outnumbered like completely, and then all the Lannister guards, all the gold cloaks, like there's a lot of people in town.
I mean, and I guess the one point that Marjorie has that Sansa didn't was an army. Like the Tyrells have an army ready to go.
Well, she's not thinking in that case. She actually isn't thinking about herself. She's thinking about history. So before we get to that, though, one thing I wanted to point out is this is like a weird parallel to me to Cersei and Jaime, right? And again, like Jaime doesn't seem to join the Kingsguard to protect Cersei like in this manner. We know why Jaime joined the Kingsguard. We learned about that in the last Jaime chapter, right? Like Cersei was like, join the Kingsguard
to be near me.
Right. It doesn't seem like that's what's happening with Loras and Marjorie here. But again, there's like that parallel of sister queen, brother Kingsguard.
Mm-hmm.
And Sansa here thinks back to another in history. She's like,
Aegon the Unworthy.
Yes, she says, I had the finest knight in the kingdom protecting me just like Queen Nerys did when she had Prince Aemon protecting her.
Yeah.
So is that Aemon we know?
No.
No.
She goes more.
Anyway, this is super old. Never mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is before the Duncan egg times.
This is actually only one Aegon before that, though. So not too much before Duncan egg. Maybe like 50 years before Duncan egg.
Okay.
But Aegon the brother married sister Nerys, and another brother, Aemon, was on the Kingsguard.
Yes, exactly. Aegon the Unworthy might not have ever harmed Queen Nerys, maybe if it was from fear of her brother, the Dragon Knight. But when one of his other Kingsguard had fallen in love with one of his mistresses, he had killed them both. Mm-hmm. Right? So this is a weird... I don't think this is too spoilery to kind of give some backstory here. This Aegon, she refers to as Aegon the Unworthy. He was kind of known that because he just had like a ton of mistresses. Like I think over 10. Like known mistresses that he just like kind of flaunted and stuff. And Queen Nerys here is his queen. Aemon, who's known as the Dragon Knight, is in the Kingsguard, kind of like making sure that the king, who's like kind of a dickhead, but also their brother, both the queen and this guy's brother, doesn't like abuse her or do anything like super disrespectful to the queen. But one of the other Kingsguard fell in love with one of his mistresses, and because of that, he killed the Kingsguard and the mistress, which makes sense because Kingsguard are not allowed to. You're breaking your oath if you basically, I think, have sex. I think it's like the Night's Watch and vows. Basically,
loophole.
Not allowed to have.
Just can't father a kid.
We talked about the loophole.
Huge loophole.
Well, yeah, the Night's Watch doesn't have sex. It's just marry.
But it's kind of like implied, right? Like John thinks it's like implied that he's not supposed to have sex.
If you're taking a wife, you're not having sex before you take that wife.
Well, father no children, right? So there's no contraception.
Is that all it is? Father? No, yeah.
Okay. That's part of it. So and there's no contraception. So if you have sex, there's a chance, right? Yeah. Pull-out game, no matter how strong it is, there's always a chance.
So even with the history lesson and Marjorie's confidence, Sansa's convinced that at some point Joff will show his claws.
Well, yeah, so the reason the history lesson is here, because the guy that the king kills here, so Sansa's thinking, yes, like, it might have been safe because of that, but the other Kingsguard wasn't safe, and this is kind of where she's thinking, like, multiple Kingsguard, so she's thinking that king, like, just killed a Kingsguard, so, like, why couldn't Joffrey kill Loras? Is I think where she's going, but then she says, like, well, that Kingsguard was just, like, a nobody family. The Tyrells have an army, not the Toynes, who's this other guy she's talking about, and she's like, if that happens, to your point, Jeff, she's like, I think Joffrey will show his claws, whether it's in a few months or in a year or something, but they'll show. And if that happens, we might have another Kingslayer.
Yep.
Right. Which, again, she doesn't say it outright, but she's implying that Loras would kill Joffrey if he did something to Marjorie. And at which point, Sansa says, just shit, everything would go bad. There'd be Lannisters fighting Tyrells inside the city. They both have big armies.
For sure.
But again, it's kind of what happened with Ned. Right? Like,
he just didn't have enough men.
Yeah, and they weren't in the city. Well, the majority of his men weren't in the city.
But there's there's still like the Lannisters are still dealing with the repercussions of that. So you know what I mean? Like it's not like they got off scot-free. But yeah, she says it would be worse inside the city at the moment because Ned only brought 50 men with him, and he had sent 20 out to go fight.
And 20 of them were out with Beric, right? Or
with Beric to go find the mountain. I think 10 he was actually on loan to the Gold Cloaks. So he only
he was pretty empty. Yeah.
So now she starts thinking about Dantos. She told Dantos in a garden meeting that she was going to marry Willis, and he's like, no, we got the plans in check. Don't trust the Tyrells. They're just like the Lannisters, but with flowers on.
Yep.
Everything's ready. We'll get you out at the wedding. Wear your hairnet. We're out of here.
He's doing the whole Florian Jonquil thing too, like he's only calling them Florian and Jonquil. Super
weird. Too.
He's drunk again.
He's really leaning into that. Yeah,
he's drunk again.
Remember who I am. Yeah, I'm your savior. So yeah, it definitely seems like he's up to something. Like he's really pushing for this, kind of like the inn people, that were like, you make sure you go along the creek and you turn away from that tower, because if you go to that tower, like it's kind of the same thing. I don't know what he has planned either.
He does start giving more details too, right? He's like, I got a boat. Or I got a ship to take you home.
Yeah, I got a boat to take you to the ship. Yeah.
I got it.
Everything is in place.
Yeah, I got it all planned out.
Yeah, I mean,
she's like, I don't need you.
He seems pretty honest, but I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard to trust anybody right now.
The thing is, like, if we go back, like, and I think I said this to Jeff, like when it first happened, like Dantos has been meeting Sansa in the Godswood for like a book now, like a book, like pretty much since Ned died. Dantos was like a chapter or two after that. This is Sansa's second chapter of Storm of Swords. Ned dies in Game of Thrones. So, like, we've been meeting in the Godswood for, again, not a year, but a couple months for Sansa, right? Like, I think half a year probably about. And yeah, she's like, hey, something else came. You've been yanking my chain for how long?
What was the time that she wanted to escape? No, what was the time that she wanted to escape? Was that the Blackwater before the battle?
Before the Blackwater. She's like, no one's paying attention to me. Yeah,
let's get the fuck out of
everything's
here.
Crazy. Like, I can go.
And he was just in the room drinking wine and.
Yeah, he's like, no, later. The time will be right. I have it all planned. Yeah.
So he also tells her that they're only trying to marry her to Willis so that they have her claim to Winterfell, which
is a good point.
It's a great point for sure. It's really all she has in bargaining chips right now.
Again, it's one of those things that's really cool. I think it's really, really cool because we know it's all bullshit. Bran and Rickon are still alive and out there somewhere. But nobody else in the kingdom knows that. Nobody knows that.
Well, Rob's alive.
Sure, but they're saying heir.
Oh, okay.
She is the heir, right?
Yeah.
Like
and Rob's kind of in a high risk situation. You
know?
The
Tyrells. The other thing is the Tyrells are teaming with the Lannisters, right? They're like, we're on your side. So if you're teaming with the Lannisters, the end goal for Lannisters is beat Rob, right? Mm-hmm. So you're hoping that you get to the heir, right? That's like their end game. So that makes total sense. If you're getting with the Lannisters, then you're hoping that you can also get the heir, because hopefully
the first one isn't much of a problem, as we were saying. They're going to kill him anyway.
Like if they were teaming up with the Starks, you'd want to like also maybe marry like the Lannister heir, so that when they kill the Lannisters, now you own Castle Rock like through law as well, right?
Yeah, they have more claim to it than the Lannisters would too. Yeah, at that point.
So she does play a little bit of the girl here, thinking about Willis again. And maybe not the girl. I don't want to say when I say girl, like the childish song singing, night loving girl.
The little bird.
She slips into it sometimes, but she catches herself when she does.
Yeah. So she's like, Willis isn't going to care about Winterfell because he's going to have Highgarden one day. But then she starts dreaming about her life with Willis and how great it's going to be. Walking around the gardens with puppies and
floating down the pleasure barge, listening to the High Harpist play tunes
just
for him.
Hanging out, chilling, man.
Listening to songs and living the dream in Highgarden.
Maxing and relaxing, you know? Like, life is going to be easy, me and Willis.
If I give him sons, he'll love me.
He might even start to love me, you know?
Even if he's ugly. He doesn't need to be good looking.
He can't be that ugly, right? Like, he's related to Loras.
Well, that's what she says. She keeps, like, kind of picturing him as Loras. But then she also thinks, like, well, he could also look like Mace.
But he can't be exactly like Loras. Yeah, there's no way
he could look like Mace, who's plump and she says like a few bad things.
He's got a bad leg. He's definitely not working out anymore.
One thing, give respect to Sansa though. She's normally not like, you don't think of her as like a Stark person. Like she's throwing her family under the bus left and right to spend 30 seconds with Joffrey anytime she can. Here she's like, if I have children, I'm naming them Eddard, Brandon, and Rickon. And, all right, respect.
Little
Sansa.
Homage to home.
You're starting to remember who your real people are. Yeah, you're starting to. You finally figured it out.
That's another big part about Willis just falling in love with Sansa too. Is like, if I can give him sons, boom, he's gonna like me more. And so.
I mean, to be fair, I think that's a pretty well-known like thing back then, right? Like,
wasn't there a famous king who just like kept killing wives because they kept having daughters?
Exactly. Henry VIII.
Yeah.
Off with their heads.
So Sansa better get it to boy.
So she thinks about the first time she's going to see him a little bit, and like,
well, she has another dream though. She does have one bad dream that. The wedding doesn't go through with the Tyrells.
I don't think I got there yet.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe. Are you saying is it Joffrey? She's marrying Joffrey? Is that your dream?
Yep.
Yeah, so before that, she's just like daydreaming, I think, of what Willis is going to look like. And every time she thinks of Willis, it turns into Loras. And she's like, I can't allow that to happen because I'm going to be disappointed when I see Willis. And he's gonna see the disappointment on my face, and it's gonna be screwy.
That's gonna start us off on the wrong foot.
Yeah, this is me kind of thinking that she catches herself falling into that, like, okay, this isn't a fairy tale. Don't expect a fairy tale, or the disappointment's going to show on her face.
She's getting smarter, right?
Yeah.
I've said that before.
Have you guys seen the show or heard of it, Love is Blind?
No.
Nope.
The fourth season just came out. It's pretty crazy. I'll just very quickly. It's like a speed dating show where you don't see each other, and you have 10 days. There's like 24 guys, 24 girls, and you get to kind of speed date around the first couple days. But you never see him. You just talk to him and talk to him and talk to him. And at the end of 10 days, you either get engaged or you go home. And people are like getting engaged on this show, sight unseen. And then once they say yes to the engagement, then they have a big reveal, like open the doors, walk out and see each other. And it's just funny because like people talk. It's just like what Sansa's referencing here is like, he's not what I expected. Like, or he's not my type.
Yeah, and you can just see it on their face.
Yep. So
does that show like have like do they have like stats on how many of those marriages like go through and like if, like the divorce rate?
I mean, it's the fourth season now. The first season was, I think the first season, I've watched them all. It's a pretty crazy show.
It would just be interesting to see like if people's compatibility really doesn't, like you'd think that there would be some like physical attraction that matters, or it could ruin.
Well, it's just more than that too. Like they end up going on like a honeymoon to Mexico. It's pretty crazy. It's a really crazy show, and I recommend it. I'll just give it to you guys. So after they get engaged, there's like maybe 7 couples a season that get engaged, which seems super high. But they go to a honeymoon in Mexico for a week, and halfway through that honeymoon, they get to meet the other people and meet the other couples, and they've all dated each other.
You can't do that. That's the worst. Because then you see who you missed out on.
Absolutely. So then they've all dated each other, and it's like, holy shit, like that girl's hot or that guy's hot.
That's the worst. You can't do that part.
They're also all from the same city. Each season's the same city. So then they go back, they give them an apartment after the honeymoon, and they have to work.
Live in the same building?
They work and live in like the same apartment building, and then they start meeting each other's families and whatnot, and then they get to the altar. So it takes like a month, like this relationship's a month from meeting to getting to their wedding day.
And people are probably just cheating on each other with the hot girl that they didn't know was hot.
I'll see if I can find like a crazy reveal, Nelson, that you could put in the Discord. But
Sansa meeting Loras, or Sansa meeting Willis,
So, so then she has that other dream, Nelson, about still marrying Joff.
So she has this bad dream that somehow it's her marrying Joffrey, but on the wedding day he turns into Ilan Payne, the guy who cut Ned's head off, right? She wakes terrified, and she's like, fuck, like, Marjorie can't go through with it. But she's like, but I also don't want them to back out. Because if they back out, then it might be me again. So I told Marjorie, she's like, I told her.
I did my part.
Yeah.
I mean, she did try, right? Like, she's trying to get it out there.
And she's like, Marjorie must have something planned. She's older than me. She's got to be smarter. And Mace knows what he's doing.
But even though
Olenna literally just like shat on Mace and said like he's such a oaf, Lord Pufffish,
big fat dummy.
Yeah, he's an idiot. He's just here for the
crown,
the honor. And,
he just wants the crown.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't. Yeah, exactly. I don't know that she does. I like everything in this chapter definitely makes sense. Like she has very good points, and like I said, this is at the beginning why I enjoyed it. Because she's kind of like unraveling a lot of these, like, like sure, maybe that's what they think, but is that really how it's going to be? Like, she doesn't truly understand who Joffrey is, right? Like, we know a lot more about that than Marjorie could ever know.
It's interesting too because there's a part where Sansa says like that Joffrey does always play nice around Marjorie, and it's like. For me, it's hard to believe.
He played nice around Sansa. We've seen that
exactly,
too.
But like, I guess just I've read the book so much and I know just how much of a dickhead Joffrey is that it's just hard for me to believe that like Marjorie would be like fooled by it. But like your point, Jeff, Sansa was fooled by it. Like she makes a good point here. Like, Marjorie might be being really dumb.
Yeah. I think Marjorie might have a little bit better guidance from Olenna too. Like Olenna is she's the Queen of Thorns. Like she's not taking the bullshit.
Yeah.
She's already been married to a king once. She's been married to Renly. So like,
well, Sansa even says it too. She says, I feel like she says like the Alla and Mega and Elena or Eleanor, whatever her name is, the third cousin, they're
Eleanor.
like Sansa was. But she says Marjorie does have like a bit of the Queen of Thorns to her. Right. And just like the way like Marjorie talks and stuff, she gives off like this confidence of like, I'm not, don't worry, I'm not worried about it.
But again, we know that people are wrong in this.
That's what I'm saying. Like in Sansa, again, she gives off a little bit more of a confident vibe than Sansa did. But again, I could definitely see how would you know Joffrey's a huge dickhead? Besides, like, except Sansa's like, oh, he's bad.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, I could see her not knowing, right?
But at the same time, like, he was nice until they were in private. Like, why would Sansa have seen that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, again, if we go back to like, you can't like once you get to King's Landing, Joffrey's already kind of pissed at Sansa because he had his arm bit by her sister's wolf.
Yeah,
right. They had that whole
Lost
debacle.
his sword.
Right, and he ends up kind of being nice to her a little bit in King's Landing. A little bit. There's like 2 or 3 Sansa chapters where he's like nice to her. Like at the feast at the Hands tournament, he like talks and he's like, "Hey, you like we're having a great time," and she says like she's super nice.
Yeah,
but it makes sense like why he already kind of is pissed at Sansa. Because like they've had this thing, and like we said earlier, Ned doesn't have that many people in the city. So like, what are you gonna do? We've already heard here the Tyrells are like sleeping in tents in the yard because there's so many.
There's
of them.
tons of them.
So
they're everywhere.
And Joffrey doesn't seem the smartest, but Marjorie hasn't done anything to super piss him off,
and she's pretty.
And she's pretty. Like Sansa had that going for her too, but she also just has. They're literally a huge army around Joffrey for her.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So he might also just be.
The benefits of being civil are pretty obvious, is what you're saying.
Exactly. He might be restraining himself for that. Yeah, for that reason.
Yeah.
So
all right. So Hermione then goes back to the gowns. She doesn't want to wear a new one at the feast. We kind of went over that. She's going to save it for Willis too, so he might fall in love with her.
So she said she's going to wear her gown for the ceremony at the Great Sept of Baelor, which is kind of one big thing happened at the Great Sept of Baelor.
She's only been there. I guess she's been there a couple times, probably. But
it's where Ned got his head snipped.
I was gonna say, are you talking about Ned?
Yeah.
It's where Ned lost his heady. One thing she was gonna light a candle to the mother for Marjorie and the warrior for Loras. She mentioned that, but
yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, but just like in passing, it was weird. I don't know, that seems strange.
Yeah, the last like couple paragraphs just kind of seem all over the place here. She's like, light a candle. The great ceremony is going to be at the Sept. Cersei doesn't want me to look bad.
I have a gown.
I can't wait for it. Yeah,
I have a future husband that I want to see in that gown.
She says, like, even if Willis does only want me for my claim, he might love me anyway.
So she's kind of made up her mind on that as well, right? Like she's made up her mind on the Dantos.
Oh yeah, she hasn't seen him. He gone.
She's like, I'm over it. On to the next. So I don't know.
You're saying she hasn't gone back. Again, we don't know how long it's been, but she says she hasn't gone back to the gods.
Well, she's made up her mind. She's not doing that. She's going to go get married to Willis.
Sure. But even I'm not doing that. I'm just done with it. I'm done meeting with guy. Him. Yeah. Seemingly. Yeah. So, yeah, good points.
Again, like this is those were the threads I was talking about. I mean, I tried to point them all out. Like there's definitely a lot of stuff kind of beginning here and like what's going to work and what isn't. I don't know. They all seem so untrustworthy and so like potentially awful for her. Like none of her choices are like seem like they're going to be a positive outcome.
Gotcha. I like the way you're thinking. And even before we recorded, you texted and said like, I think it'll be a short non-spoiler section, but you guys might go along in the spoiler section. And now I see why you said that because your head. Yeah. I see where your head's got to turn in
spinning.
Here.
Yeah.
Which
Gears
is good.
are churning up in Kyle's brain. Which is great, because I definitely would have read this chapter the first time, like, what the fuck does this chapter mean?
I'm sure I read this the first time like Sansa, who gives a fuck about your dress? Like, let's go.
JK.
I probably looked ahead and saw that Ari was next and like, oh my god, I just can't wait to get to that one. You know what I mean?
That's funny.
All right, Kyle. Sansa, last thoughts?
I mean, I think I've said my piece.
Weird threads going off. All right.
All right, we'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. We'll see Kyle in the next one for Arya 3.
Ooh.
3 already. Nice.
Yep. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle. See you on the next one for Arya 3.
Later.
Jeff, what we got?
So let's start off by the biggest one, which we actually talked about off air this weekend. Because you told me what was gonna be the big deal, and that's fake kiss,
unkiss.
Kyle or Nelson was like, Kyle's definitely gonna remember that.
Did we talk about that on air? No. That was at your house, really?
I mean, we might have talked about it right after.
I feel like in a recent chapter. I told you that the unkiss was coming. In a spoiler section, I told you that this was coming soon. Sansa remembering this.
It's off air, I'm pretty sure. It's either off air or on like Discord gaming. So.
Let's sum it up. I thought that Kyle was gonna remember, right? Like I thought
you were like all in. Kyle was gonna be like, wait, she didn't get kissed.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's gonna breeze right through it.
And even today, when we were doing it, we kind of did one of those things that we do sometimes where we skip a section of the notes and come back to it. Mm-hmm. And when we skipped it, you texted me and you were like, "Are we not talking about the Hound?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "No, we're going back." And we went back and we said it, and we kind of lingered on it for a second, and
then he even said like she got kissed. Like he made a comment like the Hound kissed her like without permission type of thing. Like.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I forget how he worded it, but it was like, oh, no, he kissed her. It wasn't like she kissed him type of thing.
Yeah. So I guess we've been talking about the unkiss now for like a minute, and we haven't specifically said what it is. So what are we talking about? What's the unkiss for any listeners who aren't super geeks like me or don't have super geek friends like you have
to remind you
to just say stupid nonsense you don't care about in your ear all the time. What's the unkiss?
So at the end of the Battle of the Blackwater, when the Hound was drunk in her room, and we debated like whether or not he was going to rape her there. You were at the time. I think I kind of got you off the fact that whatever.
Well, the reason just say what the unkiss is, and we'll talk about some of that later.
Well, she closes her eyes, and then he just leaves.
He demands a song,
and leaves.
She sings a song. And then he leaves. And then here she remembers a kiss. She remembers him kissing her. But in that Sansa chapter, if you go back and read that Sansa chapter, he never kisses her. But here she remembers it. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about, the unkiss. And the reason this is called the unkiss is because in the fandom, there was actually an interview with George R. R. Martin where somebody said, George, I think this is a mistake. Sansa never kissed the Hound, but then here Sansa remembers kissing the Hound. And he's like, no, that some things I put in the books that are mismatches on purpose, that would be an instance of an unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's cool. We've talked about how that's cool in a sense. Like Sansa is a 13-year-old girl. Yeah. She's kind of been dreaming. I'm sure she's been dreaming about the battle and that night and just interactions with the Hound. He's kind of saved her a couple times. Maybe he kissed her in a dream. Maybe like she's just like trying to like, I don't know. It was a crazy night. She was drunk. She was getting pumped full of wine, right?
Yeah,
so, like, she could have thought that, like, I don't know, the cloak might have, like, brushed her lip type of thing. And, like, I don't know, like.
So, the thing is, a lot people think this has to. I like all that stuff you're saying. Like, there's a ton of just, like, reasons why she might be remembering this. But people in the fandom think that this has to be, like, something more, or else, like, why would George intentionally put this misremembrance in, right?
Yeah.
Knowing people are going to go through it crazy. And, again, there's not many good theories that I like in the fandom.
Well, let me throw one out there for a second. And she's going to think about the Hound now for a while, I'm assuming. I don't remember. I don't remember where her mind goes after.
It's weird. You're right. For a while, there's a few people she thinks of, I guess, semi-frequently. Tyrion would be one of them. The Hound is one of them. And Joffrey is also one of them.
Yeah.
Which, again, when you think of it, it's weird because she was kind of married, promised to Joffrey, actually married to Tyrion.
And so that gets to the third
Hound,
point.
The third one in there. Because he's like in this sort of, she remembers him in like kind of romantic situations.
And I think you might be a part of this or like this side of the fan theories is that maybe she's going to like kind of subconsciously fall in love with the Hound and...
I mean, I don't know. So the Hound is how old? He's an old dude. Sansa's a young girl.
I mean, come on. It's not like we haven't seen that. Her aunt married an old man.
Sure, and I think she probably does have.
There's a baby betrothed to somebody later on in this. There's a baby betrothed to.
You're saying Lancel got betrothed to
a baby,
or not Lancel? What was his name? Tyrek got betrothed to some little girl.
Yeah, whatever.
That's why they called him. Yeah. There's just. Again, so the only reason I think that I maybe have thought that. I was reading up on this theory today, and one person had made a good point that Sansa, I guess, frequently thinks things like, "Oh, he's too old for me." Like, "Oh, he was such a super handsome knight, but he was too old for me," or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says that about knights who are younger than Sandor. So
yeah.
But again, I do think there is. I mean, she remembers him in romantic situations. Like I think.
Does he become her sworn sword then? Like where else could we go with this? Does he die fighting for her? Like
So I'll tell. There was 2 theories that I saw today. Again, I don't really like any theories I saw, but there was 2 that kind of raised my eyebrows. And one said that Sansa basically, so when it was, I think it was going off the fact that when George said she's an unreliable narrator, she's unreliable in Clash of Kings, not now.
In the last book, you're saying
she's unreliable in the chapter where Sandor comes to her room. That's where we get wrong.
That's where she at first makes the mistake that he kissed her, type of thing.
Something actually happens and it's repressed, and then here is her remembering a real thing. There was a theory that basically she was raped by either Joffrey or Sandor, the Knight of the Blackwater.
I don't like it.
And I don't like that. Again, I don't like these theories either, but I'll tell you the 2 that kind of raised my eyebrows. And she's repressing it, and then somehow now remembering it as a fantasy, in like a fantasy way. One of the main reasons I don't like this is, and I'll bring up what you were saying later, when the Hound's dying, and he wants Arya to kill him, he starts saying all kinds of horrible shit to Arya to try and piss her off. And he says, "I killed your butcher's boy." He's like, "I went to your sister's room." He's like, I took a song from her. She didn't want to give it, but I took it anyway. And he's like, "I should have taken her too. Like that's what I wanted," or something like that. But he admits to not raping her in the Arya chapter.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think that's anything like. I don't really like that theory. The other theory, again, that kind of made me think like, okay, I see where you're going, is that because Lady died, she like kind of wargs into people in like a read your mind kind of way. Again, the person was saying that this is kind of like how Bran goes into Hodor, and maybe even does take full control. And I think what they're saying is when Sandor came to her room, he was going to do something bad, but she somehow had like a Bran Hodor, maybe not a full take over his mind, but some type of influence to make it go from rape to just asking for a song. You know what I mean? But because she was in his mind, she knows she's remembering now what he was thinking.
Like maybe I should kiss her.
I want to kiss you. Yeah, I want to kiss her type thing. Again, I don't love it. Again, I told you I don't like it. Before I said either of these, I don't love them. So don't look at me like an idiot.
I think you like them. You like them.
These are the 2 that made me raise my eyebrows. Like, okay, I see where you're going. I don't hate it, but I'm not all for it.
Yeah. All right.
I do think there's something to this, though.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's one of the. I think it's cool that the Hound ends up having a relationship with Arya.
Yeah.
He becomes the grave digger. I think we both agree that he's the grave digger.
I think so, yeah.
He ends up leaving. Is he going to leave this colony? Do they all die? Like, is it like the show?
In the show, he does, but in the books, he hasn't yet. And again, I think a lot.
Does that whole colony die in the books? Do they get killed?
No, nothing like that. At least not yet.
It hasn't happened yet.
A lot of people in the fandom think it would kind of ruin his arc if he leaves and comes back and starts fighting. Like people think that if he comes and fights his brother, it ruins his whole like character arc.
Yeah, because he's kind of dropped the sword.
Is, like, to realize vengeance isn't
worth
the point of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's all I really have on the Hound.
The other thing weird while we're talking about the Hound is I told you I'm recently rereading Game of Thrones, and I don't know if I'm sure we probably talked about this in the Game of Thrones chapter, but in the chapter where he defends Loras, so Gregor and Loras joust at each other. Loras wins. Gregor gets pissed, kills his horse, goes to attack Loras, and the Hound steps in.
Yep.
Remember this? Ned, it's a Ned chapter, and Ned's mentioning that Gregor's slashing at Sandor's head, but Sandor doesn't once take a cut at Gregor's head, even though he doesn't have his helmet on.
Right.
Which is like all we know about Sandor is I want to kill my brother.
Right.
But the one time he fights his brother, we see in the whole books, he doesn't have a helmet on, and he never tries to go for his head. And Sandor never goes for his head.
he just defends the whole time.
So I just thought that really interesting. I just recently reread it. And
that's interesting for sure. I wonder what that'll mean if they do end up meeting. And it's gonna be zombie. It's gonna be zombie brother too. So it'll be super weird.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
All
so
right, what else you got?
So just Aegon the Unworthy. It sounded super similar to the Aegon from the House of the Dragons, but I did a little Google and I know now that it's not, because it was Aegon's sister and then Aemond, but not, it wasn't Aemond.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's just cool that that family is the one that gives us the Blackfyre storyline, which we hear about in the Dunk and Egg.
Yes, that's where he is where Blackfyre shit starts happening, because he is the Aegon that he has all these mistresses, so he has all these bastards, including Bloodraven, Bittersteel, Blackfyre, Bloodraven, Bittersteel, and Blackfyre. Right, so those are the three bastards.
Yeah,
like the three
and possibly
bastards.
We've talked about. It's just cool because Kyle hasn't read the other two short stories yet, so at some point,
I think one of them come again. We're reading with Kyle in the order that they were released,
right?
Which is why we read Hedge Knight before Clash of Kings, because Hedge Knight came out before Clash of Kings. Then Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords. I think we get to read the next Dunk and Egg book before Feast of Crows.
Yeah, so it'll be cool for Kyle to be reintroduced to the Blackfyre Rebellion, and I do think there's got to be something with the Fagon and the Illyrio of the Blackfyre. I want to, the Golden Company, the whole kind of deal, right? So,
while we're on that, I will say just to you real quick, there's no mention of any Blackfyre, I don't think, nonsense in the first Dunk and Egg book.
No, I don't even know maybe in the second one there
second
is.
A lot, right? Because they served Sir Eustace, who fought under
is it the little tower guy?
Exactly, and he fought under Daemon Blackfyre, right? Which is why he got all his lands taken and given to the Red Widow. So when Dunk goes over there, he's like, "Give me my shit back." She's like, "Yo, your guy fought for the traitor," and he's like, "What? I've been serving a traitor." And Dunk's like, goes back and he's like, "I'm out, bro. You lied to me. I didn't know that you were a fucking traitor."
And then he goes up and sees the banners, right? Doesn't he see the banners?
Yeah, his old shields and stuff. Yeah, and again, like that's where it's because in here, this is like where the blacks. This is like again, we're seeing it. This is where George is starting to figure out Blackfyre stuff, and there's not even any mention of Blackfyres. Has there been mention of Blackfyres yet? I don't know. Up to this point, has there been any mention of Blackfyres?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Right, but I bet you there is before the end of Storm of Swords, because if I'm right, in the next Dunk and Egg book came out before Feast of Crows.
Yeah.
Then it's all about Blackfyres.
Yeah.
But yeah, Blackfyre stuff's cool.
The last thing I have is just Dantos. We know that she's not going to marry Willis. She's going to be escaping with Dantos. Here's one thing I want to say.
We should have asked Kyle what we thought. Like, again, his head, he said.
He's spinning.
Wait a second. His head's spinning. But we should have asked like what he thinks is going to happen with Sansa next. Like we didn't really get his like. Here's what I think is going to happen.
Well,
next.
I did ask that, and he was like, "Well, I gave you all my thoughts." So
okay.
I said like any last Sansa thoughts, and he was like,
he gave a bunch of possibilities of things, and I like one of them. Well, he's right on one. He was right. He mentioned what happened.
Here's what I want to say about the coolness of Marjorie when it comes to the possibility that Joffrey would beat the shit out of her, hurt her, or anything like that. She's not worried about it because she probably knows that she's never going to have to stay married to him.
You think she knows he's going to die?
Mm-hmm.
So I did see people say that they thought that basically after... so a couple things. One, if Elena's in on it, which I don't think there's any proof of that in the books. I might be totally wrong. Again, leave comments on any... This is one of the things where I would definitely want to hear people in the Discord or in the comments of the YouTube, like, unkiss. I said, I don't like any theories. Give me a theory I can like. And the other thing is, like, is there any proof in the books that Olenna is in on the Purple Wedding on Joffrey's death? I'm not sure. Because the fact that I, like, half believe the Preston Jacobs theory that Littlefinger's target was Tyrion, if that's true, then Olenna definitely didn't have anything to do with it, right?
Right.
So again, what Preston Jacobs' theory basically says is he just asked Sansa, "Oh, what happened at the wedding?" And whatever she says, he just agrees with and just like makes up a story about it. So he's like, "Oh, what happened at the wedding? Did anybody touch your hairnet?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, Lady Olenna did." And he's like, "Well, there you go." It's pretty much what Littlefinger does.
Yeah.
So the theory there is if Littlefinger actually was just trying to pin it on somebody, that's what you would do. Is you just basically make Sansa see like, who do you think did it? And then just say, yes, you're right. But what he would really maybe be doing is trying to kill somebody else. Again, I don't know that.
So you're saying a lot of that too, before you keep going. You believe Littlefinger tried to kill him at the Battle of the Blackwater.
Let's forget that. Let's forget the thing, and let's go with the accepted theory, with what you're going off of. That Littlefinger's right, and that he's not playing weird games with Sansa, and that everything Sansa said is right, and that he told her the truth. Me and Lady Olenna were in on it. She played with your hairnet at the wedding, and then poisoned Joffrey, right? If that's true, then to your point, Littlefinger and Lady Olenna were together before they even came to King's Landing, right? He was with the Tyrells pre-Battle of Blackwater.
Right.
So the plan to kill Joffrey is probably already very close to in place, if not like set in stone. You know what I mean? At that point. And what's also interesting is, let's wrap it up with the last spoiler of the chapter, is the dress.
Right.
What's this dress?
It's her wedding dress to Tyrion.
It's her wedding dress. It's funny because there's a big key to this, and I think, and Kyle mentioned this. Kyle said maybe Cersei's trying to give her away to somebody, and I didn't know if that's exactly what she meant. If like marry her to somebody is what he meant, and I didn't want to ask and like draw attention to it, but he said that. But there's this. I think the biggest clue to this is when Sansa says, "What color will it be?" She asks the seamstress. "Leave the colors to me, my lady. You will be pleased. I know you will. You shall have small clothes and hose as well, kirtles and mantles and cloaks, and all else befitting a lovely young lady of noble birth." She's going to say a bride. "You shall have small clothes and hose and kirtles and mantles and cloaks, all else befitting a lady of noble birth." Lady.
Yeah.
And it's when Sansa's asking about the color, too. Where it says
right,
it's going to be white.
I didn't know if the tradition was that they had to be white.
I don't know if it's white or if it's the colors of your... I think that you get basically wrapped in a cloak of your husband's house, right? Tyrion has to stand on Dantos' back or Moon Boy's back to do it. In the books, he has to get a stool, but in the show, he gets a stool, but in the books, Joffrey makes like Dantos get on his hands and knees, and Joffrey has to stand on... or Tyrion has to stand on Dantos' back to cloak Sansa in like his house cloak at the wedding.
I didn't remember that.
But yeah, so like this dress thing, and what's funny is, why is Sansa marrying Tyrion? How does this come about?
Well, in the show, it's a Tywin idea.
It's the same in the books, but why does Tywin have this idea? He hears word of a Tyrell plot going on.
I mean, I guess he hears of the marriage to Willis, so he's like, we're going to marry her first.
How does he hear, though? Let's say Butterbumps blocks out Varys from hearing, which was what Olenna tried to do.
I'm trying to think who was at the...
Sansa tells Dantos. Sansa's like, "Hey, Dantos, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to get married to Willis and go to Highgarden." And Dantos is working for Littlefinger. So he would tell Littlefinger would tell Tywin, hey... Littlefinger would definitely tell Tywin if he's trying to keep Sansa.
Yeah.
My point, though, is...
keep Sansa in King's Landing.
Well, Littlefinger needs to, because he's on the team Dantos. I'm agreeing
with you.
My point, though, is now let's go back to the poisoning of Joffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You think that, like, it doesn't, like, Littlefinger has this plan with Lady Olenna to poison Joffrey at the wedding using Sansa, right? Sansa is the key to their plots, right? But then they don't mention to each other the wedding. You know what I'm saying? Like, wouldn't Lady Olenna have, like Lady Olenna and Littlefinger are supposedly on the exact same page about the Joffrey murdering,
right?
But are on completely different pages about Sansa, like where Sansa goes.
Well, they would both want Sansa, maybe selfishly.
Sure, but don't you? My point is, like, so Littlefinger just came from Bitterbridge, where he supposedly met with Lady Olenna and set up the murder for Joffrey. Don't you think, as part of the murder for Joffrey, Littlefinger would also be like, "Oh, and don't worry, Sansa will be missing. Like, Sansa will be gone at the end of it." Like, how would Lady Olenna not know that bit? And Lady Olenna here says, "Oh, you'll be married to Willis after the wedding," right? So she's just lying to Sansa, and she like either she knows that Littlefinger planned to get her away, and she's just lying to her about the Willis thing because she just doesn't give a fuck, or she's honest about the
I mean, maybe. All right, let me just throw this at you too. Maybe they have gone so far in their planning that they want to kill Joffrey, and they both want to frame Tyrion for doing it. So, knowing that Tyrion will then be put on trial and then be killed that way. So
then you're saying that Lady Olenna is cool with Littlefinger taking Sansa, because that's kind of what blames Tyrion.
I don't know. Maybe she doesn't even really, or maybe she's thinking like, oh, we'll wait till after the wedding because, oh shit, you're whatever. You got married to Tyrion. Don't worry. Tyrion's going to go down in this plan, and then we can take you.
Do you understand my problem? Do you understand my problem? Is that, like, if Littlefinger and Olenna are planning and plotting together, at Bitterbridge or wherever they were meeting before they came back before the Battle of Blackwater, right? Which seems to be the case because as soon as Littlefinger comes back, Dantos gives her the hairnet, right? So if that's the case and they're in on it,
I'm just saying, like maybe Dantos isn't in Olenna's plan. He's just in Littlefinger's plan.
I think one thing that could break this is maybe that Littlefinger and Olenna together actually weren't on anything until she got to King's Landing. That's possible. But I think that if you think that Littlefinger and Olenna were talking at Bitterbridge, then I think that you have to think that Sansa comes up in conversation. And either Olenna learns that Littlefinger plans to get her out of King's Landing at the wedding. And in which case, if you're Olenna and you honestly want to marry her to Willis, you would do that before the wedding.
Well, I think it's natural that Sansa comes up because one, she's already promised the job, so they kind of had to end that promise. So
my point is, she clearly doesn't come up because Littlefinger and Olenna are not eye to eye on what happens with Sansa. So
again, I think they both they're both like, okay, maybe they agreed on something, but they both selfishly want Sansa for the North.
So my question is like, what's the agreement? What do they agree on then? I see that they both selfishly want Sansa.
They agree that they're going to use Sansa's hairnet to kill either Tyrion. I just don't see the benefit. Like,
say Joffrey.
I just think killing Joffrey is the target. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
So they're like, all right, fuck it, we'll kill Joffrey. She can then marry Tommen, and then all right, Sansa's free. Whatever.
You don't think that conversation goes a step further?
I don't think Olenna truly cares about Sansa, to be honest.
Then my question is, why did she call to have dinner with Sansa in the first chapter?
To figure out if she could. I think it might have been about Joffrey. Like,
okay, should we go?
Tell me about this guy.
That makes sense. So she knows Littlefinger.
Like, okay,
Littlefinger
let's
says
go
Joffrey's
through with
horrible.
Kill him.
And she's like, let me ask somebody who can be reliable if Joffrey's horrible. Let's ask Sansa. Yep. Okay, Joffrey is horrible. Now I'm going to go through killing him.
Yep.
Okay, I can see that. Do you understand my problems though? Like,
yeah,
it seems to me like if they have that conversation, Sansa gets brought up. In which case, either Olenna knows that Littlefinger tries to get her away. In which case, she would try to get her out earlier.
Let me just say this to you. I understand your problem. I understand it all. I think everyone can follow your thinking. Littlefinger wants Sansa, right? Doesn't really care. Wants to kill Joffrey, probably, sure. Wants to kill Tyrion, maybe. I don't really see the point in killing Tyrion. Other than that, he's the husband of Sansa.
Hold on. So stop. Again, what I'm saying is, if there is a big inconsistency in the fact that Littlefinger and Olenna are working together, which I'm not sure if there is. I'm saying there might be based on the Sansa thing. If that turns out to be like an inconsistency and it doesn't make sense, like how could they be on the same page for killing Joffrey and not on the same page for Sansa? Again, maybe there's an explanation I'm not thinking of. But if that's the case, then like that to me, that is a hint towards Tyrion being the target. Because if they're not actually working together, then that's a hint that Littlefinger was just saying yes to whatever Sansa was saying. And people might not have any idea what I'm saying. Once Littlefinger spirits Sansa away, he's basically like, what happened at the wedding? She's like, oh my God, you were behind killing Joffrey. And he's like, yep, how do you think I did it? And basically whatever she says, he just says yes to. She says, oh, Olenna touched my hairnet. And he's like, yeah, then what? And he's like, oh, maybe she put it in the wine. He's like, oh yeah, then what? And basically he just agrees to whatever she says. And I'm not saying that what she assumes isn't true. Because like we're saying, in this chapter, Sansa's getting smarter.
Okay.
But if him and Olenna are on the same team, which is the conclusion there, then they're literally like the whole her marrying Tyrion thing is them butting heads. And if Olenna found out that the reason, and to your point, maybe she doesn't care about Sansa, but if she found out that if she did care about Sansa and found out that the reason that she lost the Willis marriage was because Littlefinger ratted her out to Tywin, then like who knows if she even wants to work with him on the Joffrey. You know what I mean? Like maybe.
Sure. All right.
I just think
I get it.
There's a lot of cracks in the potential partnership.
They could be in cahoots. To killing Joffrey, and maybe have this plan about what they're gonna do with Sansa. Like Littlefinger might have been like, yeah, sure, we'll marry her to Willis. Meanwhile, Littlefinger's over here being like, I've got Dantos. We're stealing Sansa. We're getting the fuck out of here. That makes total sense.
I 100% see that. Where Littlefinger is just saying, hey, let's do this. Yeah, you can have Sansa, and then just pulling the rug out from the Tyrells.
Like,
100% can
stealing her
that.
Anyway. So
100% can see that.
That's kind of what I was going to get to.
Okay, cool. No, I like that. That's good. But yeah, that's all the spoilers I had. The last thing was just the dress. And again, it's like, it's the one thing Sansa does fall back into her old ways of like, oh my God, I can't wait for this dress. I can't wait for this dress. I can hardly wait. Right. And it's the one thing where she doesn't think like, oh wait, but Right. It's the one thing in the whole chapter where she, again, there's a few times where she falls back into her childish ways and then catches herself. She doesn't catch herself here, and she's going to pay for it in the next Sansa chapter.
It's interesting that Kyle thinks she's going to become a prisoner, which I guess she kind of metaphorically becoming a prisoner to the Lannister.
I think that was a good, interesting thought though, that she's literally getting measured for chains, for shackles. But again, he said, or is Cersei going to give her away to somebody? Did you hear him say that?
I might have glossed over.
He said, is Cersei going to give her away to somebody? And I didn't know what that meant, but I didn't want to drill down into it.
So, in the show, Cersei, it's a cool scene, right? It's a really cool scene between Tywin, Tyrion, and Cersei.
I don't know if we get that here.
So
I think it might be a surprise.
I know we don't get it. We don't get it because we don't have I guess we have Tyrion's POV, but it seems like it's already in the works. Does Cersei get promised to anybody? Was my question.
I don't think here, no.
Yeah, or down the road, all right, you're marrying. She's gonna marry Loras, right?
I think maybe right before Tywin dies. So maybe at the very end of the book, he hey, proposes. He might tell Cersei that she has to marry somebody. Yeah. I think that happens because basically, I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this does happen soon. And I think she gives him an offer.
Does Tyrion get notified of the wedding? He has to, right?
I think so, but I don't remember. I feel like for some reason the wedding might be a surprise. It might be a Sansa chapter surprise, and then we get a Tyrion chapter about. Maybe not. Maybe in the next Tyrion chapter we learn about it. But I think you're right. I think there's a part where Tywin's basically okay, you can choose who you're gonna marry, and it's Quentyn Martell, Theon Greyjoy. You know what I mean? It's a bunch of those type of people, sons of great houses.
I just looked. There's an Arya, then Sam, and then it is Tyrion, and it looks like it's a council chamber with the pulling of the chair around scene. Right.
Okay. So yeah, they probably do talk about it then. You know what? I bet you it might end with they might talk about Cersei's marriage, and then maybe it ends with Tywin looks to Tyrion type thing. You know what I mean? Where it's ambiguous. It's implied that Tyrion's gonna have to get married too, but ambiguous. To who? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Before we I just found the chapter. Let me see where this conversation starts. I will not have the Rose and the direwolf in bed together, declared Lord Tywin. We must forestall him. How? Asked Cersei. By marriage. Yours to begin with. It came so suddenly that Cersei could only stare for a moment. Then her cheeks reddened as if she had been slapped. No, not again. I would not. Your Grace, said Sir Kevin courteously. You are a young woman, still fair and fertile. Surely you cannot wish to spend the rest of your days alone, and a new marriage would put to rest this talk of incest for good and all. So long as you remain unwed, you allow Stannis to spread this disgusting slander. You must have a new husband in your bed to father children on you.
Where is that? Is that mid-chapter?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, I just found the very end of the chapters. Every once in a very long while, Lord Tywin Lannister would actually threaten to smile. He never did, but the threat alone was terrible to behold. The greatest fools are oftentimes more clever than the men who laugh at them, he said, and then, you will marry Sansa Stark, Tyrion, and soon.
They also mentioned Jane Westerling. I saw a Jane Westerling mentioned.
It's going to be a banging chapter.
Yeah. All right, let's sign off.
How good is Storm of Swords?
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
All right. Well, yeah, good one.
All right.
Kyle was right. Kind of a long spoiler section, kind of a short non-spoiler section. So we'll see you guys in the next one for Arya. Then we got our boy Sam. Don't tell Kyle. Bye-bye.